Okay, good morning. I'll call this meeting, the Public Health and Safety Committee to order. My name is Jeannie Bora. I think we all know each other here, but we do have Mike Simonson and Councilmember Cindy Rickers is traveling away, but we do have a program, so we can proceed. And we all have basically three main topics today. One is the action item, which is the appeal for the CCA. And the other two are discussion items, the traffic calming policy draft and the rental inspection and licensing program. And for the action item, we'll take public comment before voting on that one. And then all other public comments will be taken at the end of the meeting. And we also have Carson here representing Shade Tree Commission. Are you okay with waiting to the end of the meeting, or did you?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll have a committee report at the end. We'll start with our first item of business, which is the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the Public Health and Safety Committee for August 15th, 2025.
Can I second that?
Yeah, you have to.
I'll second. All those in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. And then we'll move on to the next action item, which is the appeal of the PUC denial.
I move to, actually, it's a recommendation to the full council, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I move to recommend to the full council that we appeal the PUC's denial of the Community Choice Aggregation Program petition by the borough as well as several other boroughs.
And I will second that. So we'll open up discussion, and Maggie, can you provide some context on that?
Yeah, so the Community Choice Aggregate is a multi-municipal joint effort to obtain clean energy as a default, essentially, for residential properties within the borough. So this was started a couple years ago at this point, and it is going through the process. Obviously, when you have to deal with utilities, it's the PUC is involved, so the Public Utility Commission. So this is a state agency. And essentially this is, like I said, like a multi-municipal agreement where kind of the economies of scale to get the renewable energies. So that has been going through the approval process with the PUC, and there's a lot of really kind of nuanced legal arguments going back and forth here, a lot of which are very technical and specific in nature. But ultimately the PUC is claiming that the Community Choice Aggregate, so this joint effort would be anti-competitive. So there's various legal arguments being made there. We do have legal representation pro bono who are advocating this through the review and appeal process. So ultimately it's gone through the courts, and the decision was rendered that it would be denied because of this anti-competitiveness nature. I'm somewhat simplifying just for sake of clarity. And the next choice then is we can appeal that decision and continue to advocate for this competitive or this aggregate program to continue moving forward through the appeals process for hopefully ultimately final approval. So again, this is a pro bono work that this attorney is providing for us and all of the other joint municipalities. And so the next step again would be to appeal this decision to the courts.
Right, and then the deadline for the appeal is September 15th.
It is
on Monday.
September 15th, that's correct.
And I believe 6 boroughs have committed to joining the appeal. They're still awaiting final approval from 2 others. And just to reiterate, there's no financial commitment for the borough to appeal this. It's pro bono services provided by the attorney.
Correct.
Any questions or comments regarding this?
I guess I would just say, I think you said it was denied by the courts, it was denied by the PUC.
Denied by the PUC and appealed to the courts.
Right, we are doing the appeal now to the court.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. Sorry if I misstated that earlier.
Right,
I'm
so
on-
the 8 boroughs filed a petition, and then that petition was denied by the PUC.
Mhm,
And you're appealing that decision.
right.
I just want to also like thank everyone who's been working on this, because it's been a lot of volunteer effort and countless hours that have been dedicated to this initiative. That's the EAC members, previous council members, and Barry Brown, who's the attorney providing those legal services for this.
Jean, am I allowed to ask a question? Or is that?
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah.
if there's no other comments from the committee, we can open it up to.
So when you said residential, do you mean new build residential, or is it also retrofit? And does it also include commercial buildings and maybe government?
So my understanding, and Mike, you
Yeah.
might know more than I do about the specifics. So my understanding of this is that the program would. So currently, right now, you get your energy from Pico. So when
That's
your electrical bills from Pico. You have the option to choose a different
Right.
energy provider, so. There's, the energy market is kind of convoluted in a way, so you have. The actual energy generators, and then you have the energy distributors.
Right.
So Pico is the energy distributor, they purchase energy from the energy generators. You can purchase energy generated by renewable resources, but it's still provided through Pico.
Right.
The idea right now is that the default is whatever Pico provides,
Yes.
and then you have to voluntarily opt into a renewable energy source, should you so choose.
Right.
The CCA would be purchasing the energy by default through renewable resources, so then you would have to opt out of the renewable resource. So right now, it relies on residents, being aware and making that change. This
Okay.
would default everybody to a renewable source, which would mean that then all of the residential properties would be receiving energy generated through a renewable resource as the default option.
So it is residential though.
But it
Yeah, it's
doesn't,
just-
but it's just residential, so commercial businesses, commercial properties would not be grouped into this energy
Okay.
purchasing
Got
program.
Great. Thank you.
And it would also be, if you're already signed up with somebody else, they're not gonna kick you out of
Right.
what it is. So it's any new customers basically moving
Got it.
into the borough. Instead of their default being Pico, it
Got
will
it.
be whoever we as the collective pick.
Got it. Thank you.
Potentially, though, I'm just asking this question, we would be able to, if we decided that we wanted to do it also with commercial businesses, we would be able to do that to the RFP process, right? With the sort of negotiated something.
If that has been discussed before, then I'm sure that is an option. But I don't know for sure, so I don't want to commit to that as affirmative.
Yeah, I think for the commercial properties, we've done it a little different, so. Like we've built into 230 Haverford, as I recall, that he will offer the tenants as the default.
Right.
A renewable
Right.
source energy.
Or that's for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's the landlord ultimately
Right,
does that.
but that wouldn't apply for like older commercial.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments with that? Okay, then I'll take a vote. We're voting on recommending authorizing the borough to join the appeal for the PUC petition. Now for the community choice aggregation, that's enough. And all in favor? Okay, we have 3 yeses, so the motion passes.
Two.
Oh, 2 yeses.
See, I had to change it on all the.
And we'll move on to, also, I guess, so this will be voted on at the next council meeting.
Correct. Yes.
And then we'll move on to the next discussion item, which is the traffic calming policy draft. So this has been an ongoing project since spring, I would say. And we have a draft circulated, you all have, should have seen it. It's been developed with Chief String and the staff. I do just want to highlight 3 points from there, because some things have been changed. You were talking about the eligibility requirements and whether it should be a petition versus what it is currently, which is 3 resident requests. I did put in some language in there for an optional petition added, just to demonstrate support for an initiative. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that.
No, not yet.
Okay, but it's not put in there as a minimum requirement,
Right.
but as a suggestion that you can submit a petition of affected residents. And we've kind of gone back and forth on what the best course of action would be. I know I've had some concerns from other council members about whether there was broad support on the block for a traffic initiative and if they were involved in the process. So that might,
The way I read your comment or the addition was basically, it's just another factor for us to consider. Is there's, if you want to bring a petition from the neighborhood, obviously we'll consider it as a factor and whether to move forward or not.
so does that make sense to everybody? And then the other thing was the toolkit measures. So currently it references the Lower Merion and Narberth Active Transportation Plans toolkit, which is still being finalized, and they're not going to be completing that until probably the end of this year. And this traffic calming policy currently has a few things that toolkit does not include. And those are things like pavement markings, landscaping, textured crosswalks. So I think I would like to hear from NCPC on that and our engineer on how they feel about that. And if you guys have thoughts on that as well.
I think built environment is clearly affects how people drive and it should be taken into consideration.
Right, yeah. I think there's a whole list of toolkit measures that are already listed in there, things like speed humps and all the standard things. But I do think there's other things that can be included. Okay. And then the third thing was the budget allocation. I did just add some language in there for the budget. Basically, that we would allocate a certain amount through the budgetary process each year for traffic calming. And I just wanted to make sure that you're, like Maggie, you were okay with that and.
I think we have to just tweak the language slightly because technically council members can't bind future councils, right, legally. So we can't say future councils will do the budget, like will include in the budget. So I think we just have to say by endeavoring to allocate, I think just yeah, at the very end, that very last paragraph that you have. I might be being hyper technical, but right, Andrew, we're not allowed to bind
Probably
future
say something
councils
to the effect that we're
or intend
highly,
to allocate.
highly encouraged.
Yeah, or something. That's why I said endeavor to.
Yeah, yeah. Just they're
Yeah.
highly encouraged.
John?
Would it make sense to either Jeff or I make an annual budget request for it? This way you have in the document here saying that.
Yeah.
The responsibility for us is to analyze last year's expenditures and make a budget request.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that, because then it comes from your
Yeah.
budget,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
and
Yeah.
that's already part of our standard budgetary process, so I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, we already have, line items for these types of improvements, so by doing a budget request, we would just then specify, if it's X amount of dollars, then we're kind of earmarking some amount of that towards this, but it is included in kind of a larger overall budget that already exists. So the line item already exists, the policy and the framework already exist. So this could just kind of clarify that we're anticipating of that budget number, this is kind of going towards these improvements.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes.
That would totally make sense.
Okay, and then, so the timeline, we're not voting on this today because we're waiting for feedback from the Montgomery County Planning Commission and from our engineer and from the fire company. So has the draft been sent out to them yet?
Wanted to get through the discussion today, but I'll send them out this afternoon and give everyone a couple weeks for feedback. So provided we can hear back from everybody in the next 3 weeks or so, we could put this on for October.
Okay. And I also just wanted to kind of put it out to the committee. I don't know how you feel about, so that Lower Marion and Narberth Active Transportation Plan is not finalized yet. And it probably won't be finalized until the end of the year. Are we comfortable with adopting this prior to that being
I
adopted?
I think so. I mean, I feel like. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah,
I mean, we can always come back and tweak it if there's something I can't think of anything that would be contradictory to it.
yeah, now that we're just referencing
Yeah.
the toolkit from there, there is some things in that section where we talk about all the different
Yeah.
measures in terms of the low cost, medium
Yeah,
cost,
yeah.
and high cost. That might be affected, but yeah, I mean, we could go back and tweak
Yeah.
it if need be.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, the next steps will be to go, get feedback from those entities, and then it would come back to this committee again. And then you said, Maggie, you wanted this to go through F&A as well? But you mentioned that.
Yeah, yes, I think ultimately it falls under the administrative
Right,
arm of things, so.
Okay.
You know, the kind of technical, like the actual toolkit and that kind of falls under this committee. And then kind of the administrative process, I think, would be reviewed by the F&A committee. And at that point, it will have then gone to most of council, so that when it comes to full council, it will have been fully vetted.
okay. So, yeah, so it'll go through F&E as well. And then,
I'll push it through.
I think that was it for all of my comments. Were there any other questions or comments on that? Okay, and we'll move on to the next discussion item, which is the rental inspection and licensing program. And I'll turn this over to Emily and Maggie.
Take it? Yep, okay. So following council's discussion at their June 5th meeting, we continue to work on the rental inspection program proposal, considering council's feedback. We're still working with our third-party building code enforcement and zoning officer to just finalize everything. And we're working with our solicitor as well to make sure all of the legal aspects are in place. So this isn't, we're not asking for recommendation to council today, but we wanted to provide you with an update of where we're at so far. So we were thinking the first step would be creation of rental inventory. A letter would go out to all of the landlords and renters outlining the program, and a registration form would also be included for all of the landlords as an initial first step and to bring everyone into compliance with the new registration requirement. For inspections, because we saw at the June meeting how many rental units we have in the borough, doing a borough-wide inspection isn't exactly feasible with current staffing, so we split it up. It would either be complaint-based inspections or turnover-based inspections. And we think with our current staffing, and we worked with Yerkes on this, they would be able to do this successfully. So complaint-based, pretty self-explanatory. If a complaint came in, our building code inspector would go out and follow up on that. Turnover-based, that would really be up to the landlord to let us know of turnover in a rental unit. And then that would trigger an inspection. And for fees, we were looking at a one-time registration fee of landlords for $25. And then they would also need to submit an annual registration, but there would not be a fee attached to that. It would just be a one-time fee for that initial registration. And an inspection would be $100 every time it occurred. Next steps, we will continue to work with our professionals, and then we hope to have a formal recommendation for you in October.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. So if it's up to the landlord to trigger an inspection, but what's in their interest for doing it? And is there a penalty if they don't do it? Because, you know, they're gonna say, oh, I forgot, and so that they don't have to pay the $100 fee, or that they don't, you know, it's gotta be a carrot and a stick kind of thing.
Yes.
To make sure that they do it.
So we did talk about with your fees, what a penalty may look like. And we had talked about doing some sort of a tiered system. So there would be a penalty, and then we would work with them to come into compliance, but if it happens again, a larger penalty, and then maybe a third time, the license would be revoked.
Okay.
So we wanna work with the landlord, and this is, I know Maggie has experience with this, and it's something similar that other municipalities do. So we haven't ironed out all the details yet, but that's what we were thinking.
Okay, and second question, would this apply to homeowners that rent out their homes? Say they're not living here and they just have a home and rent it out. To, you know, a year-long rental to somebody else, does that apply to them as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be for all non-owner occupied units.
Okay, perfect. That's a great idea, just trying to work out some logistics.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a question about the fees.
Mhm.
Were the fees structures to cover all of the costs of the program?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so the fees would cover the cost of having our inspectors go out, it's. Again, it's not something that the borough is looking to make money on, it would break even.
Right.
And we did look at other municipalities to see what they charge based on our research and working with Yergis and their costs. Right now, this is what we think makes the most sense, but if we started the program and realized, you know, it wasn't working out, we could always go back and adjust it.
Are there administrative costs as well, apart from the code enforcement? Like in terms of the record keeping or
Mhm.
any software that's required?
Yeah, there would be processing the inspections as they came in, and we were thinking too in December of doing an outreach to the landlords to let them know that, you know, it's the end of the year, it's time to submit your new registration to remain in compliance. So the biggest lift for admin would probably be in the beginning of the program and creating that rental inventory. After that, it would be just maintaining.
Okay. And also, I saw that, so you would need consent from both the property owner and the tenant. What happens if the property owner does not give consent? Like, is there a consequence from that?
Yes, we wouldn't be able to do the inspection, but part of that registration that we're asking all of the landlords to complete. They do provide their consent through that registration, and if they work with a property manager, they would have to provide their contact information, so we would be able to reach out to them.
Okay.
And in a complaint-based situation, we are supported by the UCC regulations for conducting inspections on a complaint base. So if a tenant agrees to allow an inspector in, they don't necessarily need the landlord's okay to do that, especially when it's gonna be on a complaint base. So if the tenant is complaining about something and they invite our inspector in, that is legal and justified.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your work on that, research on that. Any other questions?
No, thank you, I think it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
Oh, way overdue.
Actually, I did have one more question, I forgot, has any consideration been given to kind of phase this for older housing first, because I do feel like most of the problem complaints might be coming from the older housing rather than the newer housing? Or do you think that just turnover based and complaint based is the best way to go?
Just based on the number of rental units that we have, the complaint based and turnover based is what we'd be able to handle with current staffing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're seeing high levels of complaints, we can always go back and tweak where needed, but right now I think this is the most realistic option for us to be able to have a successful program.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking even if we follow that path, to kind of phase it out and be more, even throughout, like it might not make sense to, for instance, like register all of the new properties, because that might be time cumbersome, but maybe not, maybe that can be.
It's gonna be compliance based, so we will notify everybody. So it's not that we're trying to phase in registration, so registration is gonna be a big push.
Yep.
And that's gonna be, we're gonna try to capture as much of the actual rental registrations as possible. The inspections themselves, though, as Emily was explaining, we don't have the staffing to do all inspections all at once. It's almost, 50%. Emily presented on the numbers previously, so we're talking 50% of all of the housing units in the borough. So there's no way that we could possibly do that. We would have to phase it, and it would take a couple, like 2 years probably. Just again, given staffing and where we are with that. So that's why, from an inspection standpoint, it makes more sense and it's more manageable to be absorbed under existing staffing availability through the turnover and complaint base. But the registration is an administrative task and it doesn't put a burden necessarily on our code enforcement team. So that is something that we are going to be looking to absorb. But it really would be actually more challenging to try to phase registrations
Yeah.
than to just send a blanket email to everybody. So we have, the process that we're looking to capture the folks that we know are rentals or suspect are rentals. Obviously any of the actual apartment buildings. So we have a number of, dedicated apartment rentals. Those are managed by larger companies. So those are going to be the easy kind of low hanging fruit. They will come into compliance. It's the individual homeowners who own a house and don't live here and rent it out, or they may own it, but maybe their child lives in the house, or maybe they own it and their parents live in the house. So they don't consider themselves like renters necessarily. So we will be taking a look at the records that we do have in order to identify the properties that we suspect are rentals, and send that out. So we may end up reaching out to folks who are in fact owner occupied, but they might just have a different mailing address than the physical address. That's kind of the main giveaway for us. So we use county records to identify that. So the letter is just going to say, like, if you are not actually renting your property, then please disregard this notice. So then it's just going to be a matter of tracking all the folks that we send the letters to and tracking everyone who does the registrations, and then following up with the folks that we haven't heard from to either confirm that they are in fact not rental units or to make sure that they come into compliance. So there's going to be a bit of a grace period kind of as we get this up and running, just to make sure everyone is coming into compliance. So again, we're not looking to be punitive here. We recognize it's a new program. So it's going to be something that I suspect will get a majority of responses in a couple of months, but then there's going to be the stragglers that we'll continue to have to follow up with to make sure that we capture all the correct information. And then once we get the bulk of everything, then it is just going to be maintaining and updating as people buy and sell properties. If it converts from an owner occupied to a renter occupied, or converts back from a renter occupied to owner occupied. So we'll just, keep track on that and try to develop some web forms as well that people can kind of do this in the most streamlined way possible.
You just said something that made me think of something. Are we including in this, like, if an immediate family member is living in the house, like the owner's a parent, but they've moved to a retirement community, now they're basically renting it out to their kids, are we including those folks?
I don't think we've formally talked about
Yeah,
that yet.
okay.
So really that's kind of a policy choice if we want to make, the language being owner occupied versus non-owner occupied. So if you don't actually own the house, if your parent or your child owns the house and you live there, technically it's not an owner occupied house, so I would say that yes, that would get captured in that data. And the other thing that we had talked about previously as well is just having accurate information as to who tenants are, to just ensure that all proper taxes, to ensure that those tenants
Right.
are, you know, paying all the proper taxes and you know, filing all the taxes where they need to be for EIT and general property tax.
I would imagine it, just playing out the scenario, if a kid is living in his parents' house,
No.
and they've gone to a retirement community, and they may or may not be paying, you know, rent. The minute the kid is like, I'm filing a complaint against my parents, you know, because of that.
No, I was
The
just.
parents would be like, get your own damn.
Yeah, well, I know, I was just thinking about the registration, like, I don't
Yeah.
want some senior citizen. Was my thought to have to pay the registration fee because they now have their
'Cause
kids
they have
living
their
in their
kids living
house.
there.
But I guess the question is, I mean, you could create an exception, like if the kid's living there and not paying rent,
Yeah,
right? Like if it's an immediate family member or something like that, we can think about that from a policy perspective.
Yeah, we can consider that and see if anybody else has models that incorporate
Yeah.
that provision that we can consider. Those, no policy is gonna be 100%. I suspect that those are the people who just will never respond to us.
Yeah,
In all honesty,
Yeah.
those are gonna be the ones that are just gonna be the hardest to pin down. Because they don't perceive it as applying to them.
right,
Right.
right.
Yep.
And then you have to make the decision, you know, how far do you take it?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
in terms
Right.
of enforcement.
Right.
Is it worth it? Is it, you know?
Right, and so I 100% can guarantee that this will not be a perfect program. There is no such thing as a perfect policy
you do your
program.
best.
So we do our best, so, you know, those are not the units that we're most concerned about. You know, so,
And historically, I mean, at least it's been my perception that the biggest complaints are over air conditioning or cooling or
Yeah.
heating.
Yeah.
You know, and having working units to make sure it stays a safe temperature.
Right.
Yeah.
That's been a traditional complaint.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
popped up. So I would imagine that's the biggest.
Well, thanks again to both of you for working on that. It's really
Yeah.
great news.
thanks, Emily, she's been spearheading this project, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other comments on that, we'll move on to the next discussion item. Pedestrian and bike accessibility. I do have just a really quick update on the Mainline Greenway signage. I know that Lower Merion Township just recently approved a grant for their signage. I think it's a small grant, 15,000. It's just a fraction of their total cost. But it's a sign that it's moving forward. And I'm not sure about the timing, so, but hopefully that will be soon. And then the Lower Merion and Narberth Active Transportation Plan, as we said, that's going to be finalized toward the end of this year.
And Jean, I will just note, I got an email about that just yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
So we do have a staff level meeting scheduled for later in October. We're still trying to nail down the date for that. But we do have an update from MCPC that they've been working on the plan, have updated the toolkit, and we will be reviewing the most recent changes in about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Also, I just want to note that, I know there was some concern about Wynwood Road. There was some accident there, maybe 3 weeks ago.
This is
August.
the Adam Prom letter. that we
Yes.
received.
I did I've been kind of harping on the steering committee on that particular, segment of road. So I did, and they did let me know that, they're actually taking a closer look at that segment of road to see what they can do there.
Mhm.
So we don't know what that is yet, but they're doing an analysis. Okay. And then, I guess we'll move on to departmental reports. We have the fire company report in the packet, and anything from the police department.
Just note, as we had discussed it before, bus patrol obviously is fully active on all the school buses. In the first, I guess about 3 weeks, or I guess maybe really 2 weeks part of school, we've had 10 violations that have been documented, so,
That's great.
Wow.
yeah, in comparison, just as a warning.
Not, yeah.
Warren was averaging, I think he said around 200 a week,
Wow.
so between everything, so it's definitely working.
It's 10 too many. No.
Getting some
Yeah.
compliance out of, people after they receive them, or receive them, so, receive violation.
Yeah, and I've heard it's so effective. I mean, once people get that first citation, they learn very quickly
Yeah.
how to do it. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And then if, there's nothing else from the committee, I'll open up to public comments.
You skipped over the
Oh,
committee reports.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, committee reports.
Somehow.
I-
Especially since Carson's here.
Committee reports, we have, Carson here from the Shade Tree Commission. Would you like to?
Sure, I just wanted to update you. First of all, thanks always for your support of our mission to, restore the tree canopy in Narberth. We plant in April and in November every year, so we're very, very busy right now with our November planting. We work very closely with Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, which has a big initiative, as you probably know, the Tree Vitalize program. They've had an enormous financial impact from the government, federal government cuts to things like environmental stuff. So Pennsylvania Horticultural Society has lost a lot of funding. So they have raised the cost that we pay them to buy the trees. I still think it's quite reasonable. It's about $120 a tree, which, no homeowner could ever buy a healthy fairwood tree for that much, but it is up from $90 to $120. But we checked our budgets. Thank you for all of that. Thanks, Jeff. So we're still on track to be able to pay for the trees with the budget that we currently have. I also want to give a big kudos to the borough staff. Kelsey worked with us to use the Constant Contact program, which is for the email blast every Friday. And a couple of members of the committee created, I thought, a really attractive looking individual notice to everyone who receives that. And it included pictures of the species we have this time around to plant. And we got 17 requests in 2 days,
Wow.
which is really great for us. So I really wanted to acknowledge Kelsey for working with it. And also I wanted to acknowledge the fact that the Shade Tree Commission has achieved this membership of all the people on the committee actually work doing stuff for the committee, which is, I think, pretty great. So we will be providing information for the budget as needed. Jeff and I have discussed it, or with Rick and the other members. So I just wanted to say one other thing about the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, because they're under so much threat now with losing the federal grants. They're really working on upping the accuracy of data of all trees planted, the trees that we buy from them. So this summer we did a big data entry to report on that. And we also have to get more strict about the people who work with us as volunteers so that they have real tracking, so that then when they're applying for grants, they can say X number of volunteers in Narberth work. So really working with them to help them have the data they need to get more funding since they've lost it. So we're on track for the fall planting. We average about 40 trees a year, 40 trees each planting. So about 80 a year. So we are, really planting a lot of trees, much more than any other municipality of our size. It is key, though, I think, to remember that this is not a beautification effort, it really is infrastructure for the borough. Makes a huge impact on stormwater runoff when you have large trees in the appropriate areas. So, working really hard to keep having people know that it's not just a pretty thing, it's actually a very practical thing. It also raises, property values, everyone does that, and it also cools in an era as everything's getting hotter. So, the one thing that I did wanna mention though, and also answer any questions you have, is, we're still struggling with watering the trees. We get these bare root trees, and we always ask the homeowners, property owners, to water them, but almost no one does. We do have some trees that I can get to, or I'll go to somebody's house and, use their hose and fill it, but that's sort of not really, if I leave the Shade Tree Commission, it's only because I'm retired that I go around and water people's trees. But we do have some where we just can't reach them. So for example, at the train station, we have 2 trees that are currently dying for not being watered. One of my friends who volunteers at the garden tried to stretch the hose and she was spilling buckets. We really do have a problem with that. So, I don't know, we're looking for other solutions. But it is difficult as a crew of a couple of volunteers trying to figure out a way to get the water that we need. It's just an ongoing issue for our, we lose trees every year from just not being watered.
Is a question, can you do like an adopt a tree program and have a neighbor adopt
We
a
have
tree?
tried that, yeah, we had a group of 24 people who promised to, and I created this whole group, and we had buddy system, and nobody did it. It's really a very difficult thing to get people to water trees.
When somebody gets a tree, as I recall, since I got one, you gave instructions, right, on watering, etc. I wonder if, how sort of you create
Promise.
like you sort of get them to sign, it's not really a contract, but like by
Yeah.
getting this tree, I hereby agree to
Yeah.
follow the watering instructions to the best of my ability, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
create a little moral guilt, I guess, it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like calling people to get them to vote, and you say, can I get your pledge to vote? And they're like, yes, and then they
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I told that kid on the phone, I said I
Yeah.
was gonna go.
And I actually walked around in July to all the places where you planted trees in
Yeah.
April to remind them to water and ask them to water. And in the cases where I saw a hose, I watered the tree myself. It's just not a sustainable
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And hey, we're spending money on the trees. It's 120 for a
Yeah,
tree.
yeah.
And we put it in, it doesn't get watered and it dies. I think,
Yeah.
It's
a benefit to the borough to be able to figure out some way to get water to the trees.
Here's another idea, just.
Yeah, of course.
Can you set up an automated reminder system? Hey, it's a good time to put automated like reminder system.
Yeah, we have, Rick Trallies has a, watering, so what he does is he sends emails first when they're first, planted. Then, when we haven't had rain, he
Ah.
sends them.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay, so he does.
so you're doing what you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could partner with public middle or high school environmental club that's at schools.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these kids who are on foot, who live in the borough, they
Where
might,
would they get the water? Oh, you mean when there's a hose?
yeah.
Yeah, we worked a lot with high school, particularly high school and also middle school. Sorry, I'm blanking on the build on. Yeah. They're, we have found them very unreliable. We can do like a work day with them, like as a group thing. We find that sort of ongoing stuff, I guess that's like adults too. People will come to a day.
Yeah.
But when it says, oh, we need to water these trees 15 to 20 gallons per week, that's less interesting to them. Yeah, but thank you, great suggestions. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about species or trees or.
Do you guys have enough volunteers for planting day?
We haven't gotten to that request yet. We,
Okay,
last time the tree planting was on I think Yom Kippur's, something like, or maybe
Yeah.
it was Passover. It was some like real holiday, not like
Mhm.
maybe holiday. So we don't have that problem this time, but
and when is the date?
it's November 15th. Thank you for asking. So we're gonna start promoting that soon, and I think I'm gonna ask Kelsey to do another. We have, as she knows, and thank you for all the time you planted with us. We've got just an amazing crew.
Yeah, it's fun.
It makes me cry really every time I see these people getting up at, 7:30 on a Saturday and coming down cold and the rain and the heat and the everything. Yeah.
My kids loved it too.
Yeah. Yeah, the kids like it because then they see the tree growing. So anyway, thank you. I hope I didn't go over my time. And if you have any questions.
Well, thank you for all of the work that you guys are
Oh.
doing, and also thank you to the staff for
Yeah.
supporting their efforts too.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. And then we have, I just wanted to mention, the EAC did not have a quorum last night, so they did not meet. And then the Police Advisory Committee, Rebecca Starr is stepping down as the chair. And I just wanted to thank her for her service since the PAC was founded back in 2022 or 2022, yeah. But it's been a pleasure working with her. And I believe this will be on the agenda for the council business meeting as well.
And just to clarify, so not just stepping down from chair, but resigning from the organization
Yes.
altogether? Yes.
Okay, and then we'll open it up to public comment then. We'll start with you, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. So I came today just because it was the first meeting after the summer. I didn't realize you all were gonna review a little bit of the traffic calming plans. So I'm glad I'm here because that's what I wanted to follow up on. I live at 215 Iona, which is the spot where the first speed bump was installed. It was 2023 when we received a formal report that said we were gonna get one. And so thankfully we got one. And just this past summer, the permanent bumps were installed. So I just wanted to come to follow up on the 2023 report that mentioned a couple other things. And I'm realizing that I'm wondering if going forward, if part of the traffic calming policy, there could be a procedure for follow-up, because it's coincidence that I'm here, but it seems like it makes perfect sense, There were two other things that were talked about in the 2023 traffic report for our street and our block in particular. And that was the bump outs for the landscaping. And then there was and that's all in a diagram that we received in that report. And then also in that report, there was talk about the no left-hand turn sign on Windsor and Iona. And so in May of 2024, Jean and I corresponded a small amount about these things. And in May of 2024, Jean, you wondered if collecting data again now, or a year from then, would make sense in terms of analyzing whether or not that no left-hand turn sign was needed, a good idea, bad idea. So that's why I'm here, just to kind of find out if whatever happened with those things, and if we are going to collect more data. And then it just begs the question of, should there be some kind of follow-up in the traffic calming policy going forward. Yeah, that's what
I
I
just
said.
want to respond. I think I was saying we should follow up after the traffic calming plan went into effect.
Okay.
And it wasn't like specific to the no left turn. I don't believe.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it was in an email that talked about that. And I can read that if that's helpful. I sent it to you today. I'll just, because, you know, on our street, the people on our street, when we got the report that said that they would, let me just find it.
And also just, we do have in the traffic calming policy, a procedure for follow-up.
Oh, good.
Within like 6 to 12 months, I believe it is,
Awesome.
that there will be some follow-up and data collection after that.
So in the report in 2023, it says, it is our understanding that a left turn restriction from Windsor Avenue onto Iona was approved by the borough for the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. The restriction was put in place, however, the signage has since been removed. Based on our review of the traffic data, we recommend that the left turn restriction be reinstated and the borough consider extending the restriction to the afternoon evening peak as well. The evening peak period showed higher cut-through activity than the morning peak period. The attached plan shows the proposed signage.
Chief, were you here when they came down?
What, just for clarification, when was that? Was that in 2023, so?
May 2023, the traffic report, yeah.
So we did go back, and I can't remember if this was in public health and safety or if it was in a full council meeting. So we discussed it because we have a traffic study that was done October of 23, and the volumes were so low, it was determined that the no left sign wasn't warranted anymore. We're talking ADTs of 500 a day. So the volume track, but I want to say it was like a 70% decrease in volume.
Because of the bump?
That was the only modification that was made here. So. And if you read the PennDOT manual, says that, you know, speed bumps are going to be for traffic reduction as well, you know, they're actually not necessarily warranted for speed reduction. So you're going to see count reductions from those. I'd have to look a little bit, I don't have, because the research that was done to justify the warrant was before my time, I think that was, you know, I'd have to see if I can find or get to the records, but it was well over 50% reduction. So, but in October, we were at 500, sorry, I was doing the math real quick. 521 a day.
So if we feel like the volume is still really intense, what would we do?
Also, you would probably do a follow-up, traffic study in about 6 months or 6 to 12 months, right?
So this was from 23, we could do, you know.
Well, since we put the permanent speed bumps in, when was that put in?
This
That was
summer?
just-
End of
Yeah,
July.
sorry, yeah.
So,
We can wait again, yeah.
Well, we're getting the bump outs too. Right, aren't we?
on item.
There's nothing on Iona, so
No,
we're
but-
installing bump outs on Conway and Grayling.
Oh, I thought there was one going on the corner of
Stewart,
Grayling and Windsor.
they're both on Grayling.
Oh, they're actually on Grayling,
Yeah.
okay. Because I was thinking like the fact that there might be bump outs on Windsor might decrease the traffic on Windsor as
Right,
well.
no,
Okay,
no bump outs are
okay.
proposed on
They're
Windsor,
actually on Grayling,
they're both on the
Okay.
200 block of Grayling.
okay.
Well, I'm in
Yeah.
the 2023 report, it has a diagram showing bump outs on Iona and Windsor.
Yeah,
Those were
eventually,
just curve extensions, they weren't, so when we were saying bump
Yeah.
out, I think the context of this conversation
Yeah.
was the rainwater collection
The
ones.
stormwater
Yeah.
bump
Yeah.
outs, right?
Yeah, those were just, I think we had discussed the potential of possibly incorporating that into that plan, but Panoni did not include that. Panoni was saying they wanted to drive over because we couldn't do the rainwater ones, because of the fire truck and school buses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we also decided that maybe Iona wasn't the best location for that. We had a lot of meetings about it. But some of the concerns were that the engineer didn't feel like it would create like a huge traffic calming effect. And also the reason we were pursuing that was because it might do double duty as stormwater. But it wasn't identified by our engineer as a high priority or like high impact area for stormwater collection.
The other thing that we had talked about with Iona, because we put now the speed bumps on
Meeting house.
Meeting House. Sorry, I believe I'm drawing a blank on Meeting House. That, you know, it becomes even less attractive for people to come up, make the left to scoot up there. And with Rite Aid closed too, although, you know, I think it might depend on what happens up in that corner too. Like we might end up with more traffic.
Right, and when the
It's
bridge
a little
opens.
hard to, right, it's a little hard to predict. There's
Yeah,
a lot of ifs
I
coming
would-
up in
I
short
would be
order. I think.
curious to see what the
Yeah.
data looks like after the permanent speed bumps have
Mm.
gone in.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I would love to see that too, because it doesn't, you know,
It doesn't
I hate to
feel
say it,
different.
But it doesn't feel calm yet
Yeah.
at all, and maybe, you know, maybe it won't, maybe we just need progress. But, and then the other thing is, I'm just a little concerned about the name traffic calming. Because I feel like it doesn't put an emphasis on safety, and I'm not sure why, because I know for us on our block, the whole reason we came originally was because of children and pets getting hit.
Yeah.
So the name is, I don't know if it's.
I think it is actually called a traffic calming and safety policy. And it does include some safety interventions, but a lot of the safety interventions might be targeted enforcement and or other things that are alternatives to traffic calming measures. And that's why I also wanted to include things like the textured crosswalks, things like that, landscaping, because I think those are safety improvements that might not normally fall under traffic calming. Okay,
Okay.
great. Well, thank you.
Thank
Fine.
you.
Okay, if there's no other comments from the committee, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned at 10:58 AM. Thank you all.